Aviation Future of Alaska panel. Thank you guys for all being here. They all traveled up here, so we appreciate them taking the long flights to get here. We're gonna keep going so that we stay on schedule. I now have the privilege of introducing a little bit of information about the Anchorage expansion on the Anchorage International Airport. And we have Craig Campbell, manager of the Anchorage Airport. We have Joseph Zerck of Pegasus, and we have Sean Dolan of Northlink, and he'll tell you a little bit more about the future of the Anchorage International Airport. So please give him a round of applause.
Is this the flipper? Awesome. My name is Sean Dolan. I'm with Northlink Aviation. It's my pleasure today to introduce what I think is going to be the most interesting panel of the day. I know this is the third day of the conference, but we're going to talk about the future of cargo at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. And to do that, I've got two amazing leaders here, Craig Campbell, who's the director of the airport, and Joe Zerck, who's the president of Pegasus. Craig has an amazing resume and has worked in public and private service, and he's served as Lieutenant Governor of Alaska. But I think one of the exciting things that Craig is working on right now is the update to the airport master plan. And so he's going to give you a snapshot into that, and specifically what's going on with cargo expansion at the airport. And then Joe is going to give you some background on Pegasus and the critical role that Pegasus plays in terms of servicing carriers at the airport, and specifically international cargo carriers. And then I'm going to give you an overview of Northlink and what we're building at the airport. Then we're going to do a Q&A, and I hope you'll have plenty of questions. And then we'll wrap up. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Craig.
Hey, thank you, Sean. So I'm the interim airport director at Anchorage International Airport, and I started in March of 2022. So I'm not sure what the definition of interim is, but I really enjoy this. And we got a little bit to talk about one of the greatest airports in the world, Anchorage International Airport. So as Sean said, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the first facts. This is a beeper? Yeah. First facts about the airport. But I really want to talk a little bit about the master plan and where we're going to be going in the future and why we're driving that direction. Okay, so the first slide is the overview, kind of fast facts. We got a lot of carriers, most of them cargo, a lot of them international cargo. FedEx, UPS, and Atlas, though, are gigantic players at our airport. They're domestic cargo carriers. And we're the third busiest air cargo airport in the world. That happened about 2 years ago. We're still tracking very strong in cargo, even though the Asian North America cargo demand has been softened a little bit with a lot of issues. They're still stopping Anchorage. Our numbers are still remaining very strong. We're still the third busiest. $1.8 billion of annual impact to the state from our operation. 1 in 7 jobs in Anchorage are related to this airport. I only have 400 employees, but the total airport supports about 15,000 employees, direct and indirect. So it's a big economic driver for Anchorage. And it's also a big economic driver for the state because everything, well, not everything, a lot that comes through the rest of the state comes into Anchorage first, whether it comes by rail, whether it comes by barge, or whether it comes by air. And so Anchorage remains very important to the state of Alaska as well. And China is our number one, used to be Japan, but China's been our number one economic supporter in the last 5, 6 years. They're still remaining strong even with the softened economy. Next slide, please. There we go. So this slide depicts 3 of the current developments that are going on at the airport. And the top one is the FedEx development. Next one down to is Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage, and then way at the bottom to the south is Sean's development of Northlink. All 3 are cargo related. All 3 will add capacity to our airport, both in warehousing as well as parking spots. The FedEx expansion, they did a little expansion this year. If you've been driving up and down Postmark Drive, you saw a large white tent-like facility that was put in. That's not what I'm talking about. That's a sorting center just to protect what they already are doing from being out in the elements. To the south of that, though, in the area of the bog, which is identified on the map here, they're going to build a regional warehouse facility and parking positions so that they can do sorting for Alaska traffic through a separate facility. It'll free up space in their main facility for the international and the North America traffic, and allow Alaska traffic to have its own facility and its own parking apron. They've already started it. They got their environmental assessment approved. They're in the process of now doing the design work. They'd like to get started with construction this summer. Just next to them is the Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage. That is also going to have some hard stands. It started as a large cold storage and warehouse facility. They've scaled that back a little bit and put in some parking positions. They're in the process of the environmental assessment right now. They have not completed that. Once that's completed, I expect they will go into design work. And then to the south is Northlink, and I won't talk much about that because Sean's going to cover that, but it's a development that's ongoing. We expect construction to start this year. It's going to be a phenomenal facility to add to the Anchorage portfolio. Next slide. So really what I want to talk about is the master plan. You know, we've had 3 major snowstorms in the last 13 months that really crippled the airport. Record snowfalls that caused a lot of disruption with air traffic. Our old master plan had talked about putting a parallel north-south runway in. It had looked at some expansion of some of the passenger areas, some of the cargo areas. But after what we've seen with the limited parking and some of the support stuff we need to support winter operations, we're shifting the master plan focus a little more towards the air cargo. So you'll see the 1 and 2 are the blue circles. Those are the 14 positions we have today. 14 positions are absolutely inadequate. Sean will add up to 15, I think it's 15, right? 15 positions, which will be terrific, but it's third-party development. And so we still need some expansion in the public parking in the future. So the way the plan's going right now is what we want to do is take the number 1 up there, the 3 spots, and move them to the opposite side of the airport. Then Alaska Cargo or Air Cold Storage and or FedEx could have that area available for their use, because right now we have 3 spots stuck in the middle of two private developments. We don't need to be there. So we want to take number 1 and move it over to number 5. And that'll start us with an expansion to the west side, and that's where the future is going to be for Anchorage International Airport. We will have on the north, very north will be UPS, south of them will be FedEx, and then next will be cargo storage. For us, we'll be looking on the west side for any of our future development. It's very complementary to what Sean's doing at number 4, because then you're going to take the cargo and move it away from where the passengers are and where FedEx and UPS are today. And so number 2, as we eventually migrate number 2 over, that's also going to go to area number 5. So that area can be used for snow storage, remain overnight parking of passenger aircraft, and the terminal expansion that's in the process of being decided in the master plan. So you're going to see some changes, but the change is to drive cargo to the west side of the airport and to keep the south terminal and north terminal, that whole area, really focused on passenger traffic, passenger activity, and potential growth. The number 6 you see is still, we're keeping the north-south runway preserved, the land preserved, but let me talk a little bit about that, because 10 years ago they recommended that. And if you do that, it has to go way out into the inlet, and it's going to have a lot of environmental issues. It's going to go across provide more traffic to the south of the airport and into the Sand Lake area. I'm not necessarily convinced we need to build a 4th runway at Anchorage International Airport. If the expansion happens, I'm convinced the 3 runways, looking at the forecast of operations, I'm convinced the 3 runways we have today can handle the Northlink expansion, the FedEx expansion, and moving all of our facilities over to the west side. That can be handled with the runways we have today. But if in the future we get to the point where we're developing so much that we reach capacity on runways, it's really time for us to start looking at an alternate airport, whether it's Fairbanks, whether it's expanding an existing airport like Palmer or something, or whether it's building a new airport, building an airport maybe in the Matsu area dedicated to international air cargo. That's what we need to start looking at. We have to stop trying to jam everything into Anchorage International Airport and think that we can accommodate the future demand over the next 20 or 30 years, because we can't. if this keeps growing at the rate we expect, which is going to be 2.5% a year, we are going to reach capacity at the airport, and to use that land for a runway when you could expand and develop another airport somewhere else and then maximize use of the land for services like warehousing, aircraft parking, maintenance, and all the stuff that goes along with providing good services. That's the direction we should be going. And that's what the master plan is going to recommend is when we get to the point of expansion for a runway need, should it be here or should it be somewhere else? So I think that we've got a good path forward. We will be able to accommodate growth for a long time in the future. And let's go to the last slide, I think. And so to accommodate that, we like the tourists, and we want everybody to know where we are. So we got this new sign put in Anchorage, Alaska, right there over the concourse. And the reason is that cartoon. I'll let you read that cartoon. That's why we had to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to be the first to welcome you to that city, you know, the one that you wanted us to take you to. Well, now they know. It's Anchorage, Alaska. Our vision for the Anchorage airport is to make it a true Alaskan experience from beginning to end. Most of our passengers come in the summer. They are tourists that are coming to Alaska for the experience of Alaska. Our concessions inside, as you see, are mostly Alaska-oriented, Alaska restaurants, Alaska merchandise. When they get here, I want them to know they've arrived in Alaska. And they go through the airport and they do their experience in Alaska. And when they leave, I want them to know they are leaving Alaska. And their last chance to have an Alaskan experience is at our airport. So we want to make it very friendly for passengers and very accommodating for the air cargo. And I appreciate your time.
Hi, I'm Joe Zerck from Pegasus Aviation Services here in Anchorage. We are a third-party service provider, so all of the carriers that operate into Anchorage either have to choose between having their own staff or having a company like ours service their aircraft. We were founded in 2000, so we've been out here for 23 years on the airport. We have 300 employees. In 2009, we were acquired by the NANA Corporation, so we are a subsidiary of NANA, one of the local regional corporations here. The services that we provide are basically everything that an air carrier needs to operate in Anchorage, with the exception of fuel and catering right now. So we do aircraft maintenance, which was what we began. We were started by aircraft mechanics. We do aircraft security, cargo and logistics, de-icing and anti-icing. We have a 24/7, 365 operations center that is available for our customers around the clock. We also do passenger handling services for all of the summer carriers. When Craig talks about how important it is that our summer passenger traffic have a good experience here in Anchorage, our staff works very hard to make sure that that happens. We do all of the passenger handling for United Airlines and Sun Country and Lufthansa, other carriers that operate only in the summer or year-round in the case of United. We also do all of the ramp handling, which is operating the heavy equipment and loading bags, belt loaders, large equipment as well that handles the cargo activity with moving pallets and such. We're located here in Anchorage, and we also have operations in Hawaii. So we're kind of located on two islands. Anchorage is quite isolated, and so is Hawaii. So I guess we kind of specialize in those more remote locations, but we do offer aircraft maintenance in Hawaii as well.
Great. I'm going to stand up. So that gives you a little bit of a perspective on the airport and the team that actually makes the airport run in terms of providing day-to-day service. I'm going to talk a little bit about the project that Northlink is building. And we think is going to significantly expand the infrastructure available to international cargo carriers for decades to come. So we're going to talk about the who, the where, the what, the why, and how. And so to start off, we'll talk about who's doing this. We have an amazing team. This is a world-class team of firms that are based in Anchorage that understand the specifics of how you develop infrastructure in Alaska. You see the names up here. It includes Cornerstone, MCG, GMC, CRW, Dowell, RSA, Ashburn and Mason. These are really the top firms in Anchorage and Alaska, and I think you put them head to head against any company in the United States. And this teamwork and collaboration is key to what we're doing, because it is undoubtedly a bit ambitious. Where are we developing? I think Craig's covered this off. We're down in the South Campus. We've leased 120 acres from the state of Alaska for 55 years. We have completed our NEPA process. That's the federal permitting that we worked with the FAA on. As I joke with my friends, you have not lived until you've been through a federal environmental review process. But we got through that. We got our Fonzie rod, and as we'll get to in a second, we've actually started a bit of construction. So what are we doing? I thought instead of describing it, I would show you this video. Sir, if we could click on the video, hopefully that works. Can we just click on the little video button on the bottom there? Okay, not a problem. The link is there. It's probably better if I just describe it. So sorry, it should be in the PowerPoint, but I'll give you the quick snapshot. It's 15 hard stands, 11 power through, 4 pushback. It is a warehouse that's approximately 90,000 square feet, office space that is about 40,000 feet. We're going to have a GSE facility. We're going to have a first in Alaska facility to recycle de-icing fluid, which I'll talk about in a second. Embedded in this is the ability to provide the most efficient, safe, and profitable tech stops at the airport. The airport is I'll get to. Why are we doing this? I think Craig alluded to it, but we're really trying to solve and address 3 key issues at the airport. And I think that really kind of gets to the heart of this panel, which is what's the future of air cargo at the airport? The first issue we're really trying to solve is the airport needs more infrastructure. And frankly, it needs better infrastructure. I put up on this slide, this is a NOTAM that was issued on Sunday, January 28th. The airport ran out of parking. It's not anybody's fault. It was just snowing. It happens to do that in Anchorage from time to time. And there was no ability to land freighters at the airport because there's no parking. And so there were about 16 planes that went to Fairbanks. There was another 16 or so that went to other airports. And that's a real issue because you think about why planes are coming to Anchorage. It's because they want to do a pit stop. They want to do the technical stop. And if you're doing a tech stop, you do not want it to take a day. You want it to take an hour. And when you get diverted, it takes a lot closer to a day than to an hour. And so we want to be able to provide the infrastructure for the carriers to be able to land. Snow, no snow, day in, day out. But we also want to improve the infrastructure. And one of the things I highlight for our customers is, listen, you would not park your car in a completely dark parking lot. You're like, no, I'm going to find some place else to go. I'm not parking in the perfectly dark parking lot. And it's no disrespect to the airport, but the airport has no overhead lighting. So you have these planes that are immensely valuable that are being refueled, de-iced, recrewed, catered in the pitch black. maybe foggy and snowy, maybe all of the above. And Alaskans are amazing at making do with what you have, and you make it work, and it's worked that way for decades. But nobody's going to say that like doing a tech stop of a 747 in the pitch black when it's snowing is best practice. And so one of the very basic things that we're going to do is not only provide more hard stands, but hard stands that have lighting, hard stands that have ground power that works well. And as I'll talk to in a second, we're going to also have some pretty interesting technology. So step one is solve an immediate need for infrastructure at the airport. But the second thing is, why not tap into one of the big macro drivers of the global economy? The second thing we want to do is be able to allow carriers and their customers to use Anchorage as a tool to get packages to consumers faster at a lower cost. You know, everybody is buying things more and more online. That online shopping is international, and Anchorage can play an important part in getting packages to folks faster at a lower cost. Not every package needs to run through LAX or O'Hare or JFK, et cetera, which are characterized by a lot of congestion. So what are we going to do? We are going to make Anchorage, specifically our terminal, the first port of entry for e-commerce packages coming into the United States. You know, with that, we will be able to provide the customs clearance required to do that. And why are we doing it? Because e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce, is the biggest growth driver of the air cargo industry. So if you're talking about the future of air cargo, it's with e-commerce, and we want to be tapped into that. And again, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? That's all well and good. The problem is, as I said, not everything needs to go through O'Hare or JFK or Memphis, whatever. We can use this as a way to insert packages into the US postal system. We can put those packages onto an Alaska Airlines plane. We can put them into the FedEx or UPS domestic systems, because once those packages are customs cleared, they can go anywhere in the most efficient route. And we want to be able to provide the infrastructure and the technology to facilitate that. So the third problem we're trying to address is a pollution issue. So last winter, over 1 million gallons of propylene glycol went into Cook Inlet. That's a lot of propylene glycol. It's a meaningful pollution issue. But more than that, it's just bad business, because propylene glycol is very valuable, and it costs a lot of money to ship it from Texas and Louisiana, where it's primarily manufactured, all the way up to Anchorage. So what we want to do is provide a solution to recover and recycle this de-icing fluid, which will help the environment. But for the aviators in this room, it will ensure that the airport has an on-airport source of type 1 de-icing fluid, AMS 1424 certified de-icing fluid. And so we're doing this not just for our terminal, we're doing it for the entire airport. And that's actually part of the reason why we have this panel today, because the way we're approaching all this requires a tremendous amount of collaboration with the airport, the service providers, the air carriers, everybody, to be able to provide the solution. But we believe that working with a technology company called Villicon, we can provide a comprehensive solution to address what we think is an urgent pollution issue at the airport. So, what's our timing and how are we doing this? This is a phased construction approach. As I mentioned, we got through permitting in August. We started construction 3 days later. We're going to look to build between 5 and 6 hard stands this coming summer and have those operational in Q4. And then push ahead and have the vertical construction ideally done by the end of 2025. I say ideally because, as we all know, the issues with weather and supply chain and whatnot can sometimes impact the timing. But as you can see, you see a little bit of the earlier stage construction. I'll show you some more photos on the next slide. But what you see in the bottom picture is the taxiway Zulu improvements, which were completed last summer. Here's some more photos of the site and the ceremonial groundbreaking that we had in October. These pictures probably don't do the site justice. I mean, 120 acres is a lot of land, but that's what we need to be able to park 15 747s and handle all the other buildings that we're constructing. I wanted to wrap real quick because, you know, again, the topic of this panel is the future of air cargo. And you can't talk about the future without talking about technology. This is one piece of our technology that we're looking to employ. I talked about lighting, but when you have lighting, then you can put video. When you have video, then you can start to use AI. What we're going to be doing is using video enabled with AI to capture everything that's going on with the aircraft and using that data to disseminate it throughout the airport and around the world so that we can ensure that every tech stop is safe, efficient, and profitable. And in one of the ways you can make it more profitable is by making sure that, you know, the APUs are shut off when appropriate and ground power is hooked up. But this is an example of some of the technology that we're looking to employ. I mean, I won't bore you with cargo community systems and warehouse management systems and whatnot. My experience is people's eyes glaze over when you get into that. But the point is, technology is extraordinarily important to how we are approaching this and how we're going to address the problems that we're looking to solve at the airport. So with that, we're going to go to some Q&A. Yes. Sure. Okay. We'll have the dramatic lead into the video. All right, thank you. So you got the marketing video. So I think with this panel, we really wanted to give you a perspective of the infrastructure development, what's going on with the airport, and the service providers who are making the airport operate. So I thought we'd jump in with a few questions, and I'd like people to get ready with their own questions because we'd like to make this interactive. But Craig, I'm going to start with you. One of your many responsibilities is to represent the airport on the global stage. It's the third busiest cargo airport in the world. There's a lot going on in the world. Russian airspace is closed, conflict in the Middle East. I thought it'd be interesting if you could just talk about how you see the rest of the world viewing Anchorage and how that view is likely to evolve given kind of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, that's a good question and very difficult to predict the future with the conflict in Ukraine and the relationship between Russia and the United States right now. It has benefited us to a degree. When the war first broke out, there was an expectation of some that we'd go back to the 1970s and 1980s and all the traffic would come through Anchorage, Alaska. Well, the global markets have changed enough for a lot of that traffic diverted itself down through China and Kazakhstan and India, as opposed to coming back up through Alaska. However, it kept our market strong. In 2022, we were the busiest cargo airport in the world for a short period of time because of COVID had shut down everything else. The traffic was moving through Alaska. It kept us in a really good position, and carriers have learned that. So I went to Japan only a couple of weeks ago and talked to a couple of the carriers about, cargo carriers, about what the future looks like, because All Nippon Airways is merging with and taking over Nippon Cargo Air, and I wanted to kind of explore, what's that mean to you? Because ANA flies some cargo, but not through Alaska. NCA is big here. So I said, what's it mean to you? Are you going to be adding flights? Is ANA going to change dynamic? And it was insightful to say that they really understood that Alaska will remain a significant tech stop for them in the future. The merger is not going to disrupt operations through Alaska. In fact, it could enhance it as the global economy strengthens itself. So there's a lot of activity, and the international market is very, very important to us. So what we also do at the airport specifically is my deputy works with all the station managers of the international carriers on discussing what this month looked like, what next month will look like, and what their projections are for the future. We want to stay very connected with our current customers and what their needs are, but we're also outreaching to other carriers. I've been discussing a little bit with Air India, and people say, why are you talking to Air India? It's halfway around the world. Yes, it is, literally. But a lot of the market in China, which has gotten kind of expensive and not necessarily secure and predictable, but a lot of the market is now moving to Vietnam, India, and other places in Indonesia, in the Southeast Asia area. So Air India is changing their entire complex. They have a new CEO, they're developing a larger cargo market, and their expectation is that they may someday have a need for Alaska. Exact same scenario with Emirates. Now you're really going out on the edge. Campbell, what's going on with you? Keep real. Well, Emirates is going to buy 50 air cargo aircraft. They deliberately want to have a structure that's going to make them one of the premier cargo carriers of the world. So Emirates is looking at, is there an ability to do round the world traffic, which would integrate Anchorage, Alaska into their network? I think it's possible. Now, is it going to happen in the next couple of years? Probably not. But I think it's going to happen in the next decade or so, and that's partly why Sean's development is so important. We have to have a mix of third-party development and public parking capabilities to serve the emerging market, because some carriers are just going to want to stop here to get gas and nothing else. Others are going to want to take advantage of the marketplace, interlinking cargo, dropping off cargo, changing intermodal to maybe take it to the barge and have it shipped down to Seattle and then go on rail. Alaska's going to have more opportunities, and these carriers like Emirates and Air India, they're looking at how could that be integrated into their network. So we have to continue that international outreach, Sean.
Thank you. Joe, I think one of the things that the people take for granted or maybe don't appreciate is that the airport is a 24/7, 365 operation. Can you just talk a bit about the challenges of being on the front lines of making that work and work really, really well?
That is a significant challenge, Sean. Yeah, as Sean says, we operate 24/7, 365, and a lot of the customers that we service don't recognize our holidays either. So there is no Thanksgiving in China, and they operate right through it. It's also a very dynamic schedule. The freighter schedule is not like a passenger schedule. Passenger schedules usually adhere, despite the delays that we sometimes incur. For the most part, they adhere to a pretty strict schedule. They usually arrive and depart when they expect. The freighter schedule is much more dynamic. They operate the aircraft when it can be most profitable to operate it. So although there's a basic schedule every month, the arrival times, the actual arrival times fluctuate quite dynamically, depending upon what's going on in the freighter world.
Maybe just as a quick follow-up, talking about kind of the outlook in the future, could you just talk about kind of what the current labor market looks like for making this all happen?
And the labor market, we work a lot to give good employment opportunities here at the airport. We have very aggressive benefit packages. We have sign-on bonuses and things like this that we work to incentivize people to come and work in the aviation field. We're also working with the University of Alaska to train aircraft mechanics, aircraft maintenance personnel, for example. We sponsor them, pay tuition, provide them work while they're going to school. Things like this have been necessary in order to support the industry.
So Craig, we talked a lot about international air cargo, but the airport actually serves two really, really important roles. It serves the international air cargo community and the cargo community that's serving greater Alaska.
Yep.
Can you just talk a little bit about how you make the airport work for both of those cargo businesses?
And thank you, Sean. Good question. They are different. The international traffic that comes through here is long distance and it uses the larger aircraft. But we have a very robust domestic cargo operation. Northern Air Cargo is still a strong air cargo operator at Anchorage International Airport. In fact, if you go through there once in a while, it's been a merger of a number of carriers, and you'll see Aloha Airlines here once in a while. You go, what is Aloha Airlines doing in Anchorage? Well, it's owned by the same company that owns Northern Air Cargo, and they actually swap aircraft. So the other thing you can see in Hawaii, you can actually see a Northern Air Cargo 767. You go, what is a Northern Air Cargo 767 doing in Hawaii? It's actually flying between Los Angeles and Guam and the Oceania area, because Alaska air cargo is really a central part of the whole Pacific. So what we do is we support whatever the needs are of primarily Northern Air Cargo and Alaska Airlines. Alaska Airlines, by the way, is converting two 737-800s to cargo, and they're, again, dedicating more to the Alaska market. So you're going to see more of the domestic cargo operations from Alaska Airlines and Northern Air Cargo reach out to rural Alaska. So we want to accommodate that. And so one of the things we do is make sure on the east side of the airport, which is where Northern Air Cargo and Alaska Airlines operate, we have ramp space and parking spaces and the utility support they need to operate efficiently. We are looking right now at the Delta, the old Northwest catering facility at the airport, which is now owned by Delta, has 3 parking spots. They're not always used. We're talking to Delta Airlines about converting 2 of those back to the airport so we can make it more convenient to have domestic cargo aircraft operate from the east side using those type of hard stands.
Great. Would love some questions from the audience.
Benefit to the whole Anchorage economy and the Alaska economy, but what does it look like in terms of numbers for adding the right amount of labor you need? I mean, with snow removal, with the employees for Northlink, what does that look like for everyone in terms of maybe the numbers of employment opportunities?
I'll start at the airport. We, from just the state side, we added 12 positions last year to do the increased support we need. We're probably going to need another dozen people once Northlink goes into operation, because we're building a parallel taxiway on the south side of the airport. We're going to have to clear that entire taxiway. So his apron, that long taxiway, the support side on the south side, we haven't had a lot of manpower staffing for. So we're going to be plussing up for that. We're also looking at the structure of the international airport system, because I don't want to neglect the fact that Fairbanks is an important part of our system. I consider us having 4 runways already, 3 in Anchorage and 1 in Fairbanks, and we work together on making sure that the system flows smoothly. So collectively, we are going to be adding 2-3% staffing over the next 5 years probably to meet this increased demand. Now, outside of that though, and Joe can talk about Pegasus, but I'll tell you that the carriers are bringing in more people as we do see more development of other than just aviation systems on the East Air Park. You're going to see growth at the airport, and I think it could go to 1 in 6 jobs in Anchorage in the next 5 years. As I looked at the AEDC projections of the future, that Anchorage is going to have an economy that continues to grow slowly, but we still have out-migration. So that's going to challenge us on the number of workers we're going to have available. We're going to be competing with the private sector with a reducing number of potential employees in a growing market. So it's going to become a challenge, and we're going to have to face that through better wages, compensation, and work schedules.
And at Pegasus, yeah, during the summer, we definitely have a big hiring spree to support the increased summer passenger traffic. But, we're trying to address a lot of things in hopefully some creative ways. I mean, one of the things is the appeal of Alaska itself. A lot of young workers, we try to reach out across the lower 48 to encourage people to come to Alaska. It's a fantastic place, especially if you're a young person and haven't experienced anything like this. We bring people up from other locations as well. We have quite a large Samoan community who works at the airport, and we have folks from American Samoa that come up every summer to help us out. They're a critical part of making the operation work, and then they return back to Samoa. Evidently, the winter weather is not what they're up for.
So one of the things that Northlink is doing to kind of supplement this hiring, because with our warehouse and everything, we expect to add at least a couple hundred jobs. But the thing that's unique to Anchorage is that, and Craig hit upon it, like there are more jobs than people. And so part of what Northlink needs to do is to position us as a new business to be the employer or the place that you really want to work. And as you kind of picked up, our mindset is let's solve problems. And so one of the problems in Anchorage, there's not enough childcare. So what we're going to do is we're going to have on-site childcare. I personally think this is going to be the coolest daycare preschool in the world. But the idea is that the folks that are working on the ramp in the warehouse will have the ability to bring their kids, drop them off at high-quality childcare, and go to work. When their shift is done, they can pick their kid up, and they don't have to worry about it. And Joe and I need to work out the economics, but we're going to make it subsidized so that it's very affordable. And the idea being this is a benefit that is unique, that all of a sudden opens up aviation to a broader set of folks that may be working parents, so that we can ensure that we attract and retain a very safe and loyal workforce. So that's one of the things that we're very, very focused on. Other questions?
Given the recent announcement of the prospect of Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian merging, is there a prospect maybe in the next 5 to 10 years that the maybe North Passenger Terminal expands to accommodate more passenger service from other international destinations and maybe even Europe as well?
Excellent question, because we're right in that master plan process right now, and they've looked at about 3 different concepts to handle the increased passenger demand in the next 20 years. We're leaning towards an idea that would connect the North Terminal and the South Terminal. So you take the sea concourse that extends now, you just basically continue all the way over to the North Terminal, and then you take the gates that face the South Terminal right now, you make them domestic, you take the north side, make them international, so you retain your capabilities for Discover and Condor and others that will come here internationally, but you actually expand that opportunity. Alaska Airlines does see growth. I'm not sure there'll be a direct correlation between the acquisition of Hawaiian air by Alaska Airlines that will drive that growth. It's going to be primarily summertime growth. In fact, this coming summer, you probably all heard it in the press, but Delta's adding back to Detroit nonstop. They haven't done that in 5 or 6 years. Alaska's adding nonstop to JFK, New York, as well as San Diego. And United's adding a nonstop to Washington Dulles. We've never had that before. So that's 5 new routes that's coming up this summer that shows that there's going to be increased opportunities and demand here. So our idea is start expanding towards the North Terminal and eventually integrate the 2 terminals together as the growth continues to grow.
Great question. More questions?
So Craig, I think it's interesting that the airport's going to grow so fast that someday we might have to consider another airport. Would it just be a reliever, or are you talking about a whole nother international airport? And where would we park that thing?
So I don't know if Troy's introduced himself to you before, but he's my competitor at Statewide Aviation. And that question was designed so, where do I put my airport? It's an excellent question. I don't know the answer to that, truthfully, Troy. I think that's a whole site selection study that needs to be done, taking that 4th runway at Anchorage and saying, is this really the best viable alternative compared to something else? There's been talk in the past, I've been here 43 years, there was talk in the past of closing Anchorage and building an airport at Matsu. My personal opinion is that's insane. We're talking billions of dollars to do that. So I think Anchorage Airport remains a primary passenger airport with supporting the cargo activity. But as the cargo grows, that really can go somewhere else. It doesn't need to be Anchorage centric. The Valley would be a very good spot because it still connects close to the Anchorage market to have a cargo international clearing airport. That's my opinion though. Hasn't been decided. Site selection will take care of that in the future. And yeah, you'll get another airport to manage.
More questions?
Thank you. Hi, Joseph. My name's Jamie, and I work with Alaska Excel. We've brought a lot of students over to Pegasus, and we've really enjoyed the tours that you guys have offered. And I just appreciate that you guys are becoming a new standard and offering driver's licenses, like training, and it sounds like Northlink is also doing that. So it makes a huge difference in increasing the amount of workforce that can actually take jobs there. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. You know, one thing I think in aviation over time, you know, it used to be extremely popular to be in aviation following World War II and that, and there was generations of us that came up as professionals in the industry. We kind of, computers maybe took a little bit of that away from us over time, but I see it coming back the other way. Aviation is an incredibly interesting field to be part of. We're trying to convey that to people. I think it's definitely making steps in the right direction. We're seeing long-term dedicated employees who stick with us for, you know, multiple decades now, and glad to be a part of it.
That's a great question. I think that's something that we're actually looking to change up. Right now, the vast majority of the non-UPS, non-FedEx planes that land, they refuel, they de-ice. In the winter, they'll recrew, cater, and then take off. And they want to do that in 60 to 90 minutes. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, but like in that time frame. And that's the way it works right now. UPS and FedEx have discovered long ago that you could use Anchorage as a logistics hub to get packages to where they're wanted faster. And so what Northlink's trying to do is, you know, basically convey to carriers, yes, you can come to our terminal and do a tech stop, and you can do it more profitably than anywhere else. But if you're going to come, let's add some services. One of the things that I neglected in my comments is another problem that we're trying to solve is that these carriers, when they fly westbound, they're flying 50 to 60% full. Alaska has this amazing seafood industry. The high value seafood that is flown to Asia largely flies through Seattle right now. That doesn't make a lot of sense from my standpoint. And so one of the things that we're looking to do is incorporate cold storage and all the refresh tanks and everything that you need to be able to stage high value live seafood so that it can be put onto a freighter and flown to Hong Kong. There are no direct flights from Seattle to Hong Kong. We got plenty every day from Anchorage. And so we want to be able to connect high value seafood to high value markets in Asia. And my mantra is, let's open the cargo door. But to give people the conviction that they're going to open the cargo door to either download packages or upload seafood, you need to have world-class infrastructure, you need to have world-class service, and you need to have world-class technology. And we're looking to incorporate all of that in what we're doing.
Let me add to that a little bit. That's a great question, because there's a couple things that are going on. This is one that amazes everybody when I talk about it. Every day, we get at least one freighter from Halifax, Nova Scotia, going to Korea or China. And everybody goes, well, what is in Halifax that would cause them to stop in Anchorage? Every day, we get at least one 747 filled with lobsters. Lobsters from New England and Nova Scotia and New Brunswick that go to Asia, all by air. It's profitable. It's profitable to do it that way. So I'm going to shift gear. That's just an interesting factoid. We're also looking at a program called Alaska Pass. As most of you know, we have the Stevens Amendment that allows exactly what Sean's talking about. You can open your doors. You can mix cargo here. You can clear customs here. You have the ability. We don't have the facilities. We don't have enough bonded warehousing. We have some limitations that he will solve by what he's building. And ACCS will be able to add to that too when they're done. But in the meantime, we're looking at something called Alaska Pass, because right now, if you fly cargo from China to New York, all by air, that's expensive. If you go, but it goes fast. You can get it there in 24 hours, right? So if you got a high value item and you want to get it on the shelf really quick, air is the way to go. If you have a low volume stuff, it's not too expensive and you don't care if it gets there in a month. You go by maritime. You take it by ship, you bring it to the West Coast, you put it on trucks or rail, and you finally get it to its market. 30 days or so, that's low cost. In the middle, there's a sweet spot. What is the mid-range? Fly it into Alaska, shift it onto the barge, get it down to Seattle, put it on trucks or rail. We're also looking at that Alaska Pass, and we did a test last summer. Korean Air flew a package, a whole plane load in here, unloaded it in Anchorage. We put it in, it stayed bonded, was trucked down to the port, put on a barge. Backhaul rate is about half what it is to bring stuff up to Alaska. So you get a good price going back down. Put it on the rail. It did it in 14 days. That's exactly the optimum that the mid-class wants. They don't want 30 days and they don't need 24 hours, but 2 weeks, that's about right. So we tested it, it works. This is all part of what we're trying to do to expand the market and opportunities for Alaska. What he's doing, if we can provide this Alaska Pass as a routine product, if we can enhance the capabilities of bonding, warehousing, we're going to be able to grow the market in Alaska. You will see more happening here. Oh, good.
Great. Any more questions?
The latest estimates I've seen of the Arctic sea ice being clear during the summer are in the next 5 to 10 years, which should theoretically add a lot of shipping to Alaska and proposals for developing the port in Nome. Are there any plans for that to affect Anchorage Airport or the port in Anchorage and how we work with the port and the cargo airlines?
Actually, the model I just talked about of 24 hours versus 30 days will not really change. Going by sea, yes, they'll have an ability to use a different route to get to Europe, but the North America route will remain basically the same, and the 24-hour demand will always be air.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things about this panel and how we're approaching infrastructure development is we want to be able to provide creative solutions. We can't predict the future perfectly. Things are going to flow in different ways. People are going to think about carbon emissions in different ways, et cetera, et cetera. But if you have world-class infrastructure married to world-class technology and service, there's a lot of cool things you can do. And a lot of carriers and logistics providers are already harnessing that. If you see what's going on around Hong Kong and you look at sea to air, there's no reason why you couldn't do that here. Again, you need to be able to have all the elements that I mentioned to be able to do that. And that's, I think, the mindset that we're using to approach this development.
Okay, let's have a big round of applause for our panel, folks. Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate your time today and the opportunity to have you speak in front of everybody. So we are about to get started with one of the most exciting events of the event itself. I have a quick story to tell you before we do that. So rewind a couple of months, I was trying to figure out who we would have come speak in front of you, and I was speaking with Boyack Ryan, and he told me about a time when he was down at Raqqa, and he heard someone speak about how to manage a company across generations, especially dealing with the issues we experience today between generations and their communication. So he told me a story that was very impactful, and it led me to having a conversation with the man who you'll hear from here shortly. And I think you'll all